Regarding Tevor's recent balance issues, after the 3.2.6 update, we observed that Tevor performed way better than we expected in Point War. We have also received feedback from many players regarding Tevor's ability changes, as keeping things balanced is one of our top priorities. We will further adjust Tevor's abilities based on our original expectations of his design and on everyone's suggestions. Now, the adjustment details will be disclosed in a future announcement because they have not come up with an adjustment just yet. And as always, thank you for your cooperation and support. We also look forward to receiving more feedback via this thread itself. So we're going to take a look at the thread in just a little bit, but before that, we are going to take a look at some things about Tevor's kit that makes him a little bit too overtuned in my opinion. Now, personally, I will not be giving any opinion on this matter. I'm not going to say that, oh, he is too broken or he's not broken enough or that kind of shit, because a lot of people say that my words have a lot of impact in the direction that Lilith steers the game into, which I fully disagree. I don't think a mega corporation is going to listen to someone like me. So this is the voice of everyone in the entire community. I have not covered him in PvP at all, so this is not on me. Now, the main point of comparison that I want to bring across is the difference between his... well, there's a couple of things, right? So the difference between his overkill damage, that's like number one. So we're going to take a look at what Tevor can do on his third skill over here. So he has a 330% multiplier, dispels all buffs on one single enemy, and then you absorb all their AP afterwards. So you are going to remove all the immunity, right? Regardless. Then attacks the enemy, which is 330% of attack, and then afterwards he has this overkill of 150% onto targets with the red colored debuff, who have the highest attack basically. Now I'm going to compare this Esper, this Tevor, to something that we already showcased before, which is an R6 Lewis. R6 by the way, okay? So take a look at Rage Avatar here. His damage multiplier is 260%, and for every 10% max HP the enemy loses, your damage goes up by 4%. So your cap is plus 36% in terms of damage, and this is the final damage multiplier. So essentially the maximum damage that Lewis can do with the most perfect setup by lowering the enemy's HP to 1% before using Rage Avatar, your final damage is actually 353% or thereabout. So that wins Tevor by about 23% with the ultimate setup. This is like the perfect setup. Then you will kill that target and you will do a 50% overkill damage at the same time. 50%. So this is the main comparison. In terms of multipliers, as long as Lewis gets the perfect setup, he's going to outmatch Tevor by 20% of his initial multiplier. But the overkill damage that Lewis will then do, which was his main selling point back then, and I say back then because Tevor is now in the meta right now. Wait, what? We just received a new... Oh, okay. So let's check Anomaly Phase 3. Now Tevor is doing 150% overkill damage for free, essentially, right? So he don't need to have any setup to achieve 330% attack multiplier, and he don't need any setup to achieve 150% overkill damage. You just need to take a turn, inflict the red debuff on one target, and that's it. Done. So the problem with this is that in a lot of situations, your overkill damage is actually a lot stronger than your initial damage, because if you're able to kill the target and do a little bit more overkill damage, that's actually going to like multiply by 1.5, and that in most cases can actually scale harder than your initial burst of 330%. So it's an AoE hit of somewhere between, I don't know, usually it's about 200% of his attack because of how low the initial HP of the first target was, up to somewhere about, I don't know, 450% potentially. So it's a massive AoE nuke on Tevor's third skill right now. Now, how I think that Tevor was intended in the first place, right? So based on the tests that I've done in the PTR server, what I feel like the initial objective of Tevor was for him to use his third skill to kill something, to snipe and absorb their AP. And with that, because of his Neko sense, he's actually going to reset his skill cooldowns when he takes a turn. So whenever he takes the next turn, he's going to Neko gift box again. So I think this was the original plan of how they initially designed Tevor to be. Not to deal massive AoE damage, not to wipe the board in one hit, but to just consistently take a turn, kill something, take another turn, kill something again, and that's where his niche would be, which was already insanely broken, right? And of course, I've also just showcased, like right as when they announced this Tevor issue update thing. I uploaded a video about Tevor's R6 dealing an insane amount of damage onto the Dislyte land bosses, and how that came about is obviously because of his R6. Whenever any ally attacks, right, when the marked target takes a hit, Tevor will perform a pursuit attack with his first ability. So this is extremely broken because whenever he pursues, he's actually going to benefit from all the effects of Neko-Analysis over here, which is reducing the enemy's defense by 25%, or rather ignoring the defense by 25%, and dealing an extra true damage which is 600% of his attack. So this gives him a lot of offensive power, and of course on top of that, Neko-Sense also increases crit damage by 30%, which is it's not something that you will always have, but it is still something that's going to further boost his damage output. But actually now that I think about it, he's probably not going to get Neko-Sense in the Dislyte land, so this actually doesn't matter at all. So I think that was the initial objective of Tevor, which is just to one-shot stuff, which in my opinion I think is a really good thing to have, because we don't really have a very strong single target nuke. But of course on top of that, there's a lot of nonsense coming from Tevor itself, because whenever Tevor kills an enemy, that enemy cannot be revived, which is insane. So his single target nukes is actually going to kill enemies for perpetuity. So one way that I think they can mitigate this insane effect, which is having an R6 Tevor and you essentially win a specific content, right? 100 million points. There is no way anyone can beat it, not even with the most perfect setup that does not involve an R6 Tevor. So I think one way that this can be mitigated is to probably remove the analysis when he attacks targets with the analysis. So you're not going to be able to avatar proc and benefit from all these effects, for example, or when you pursuit, you're not going to benefit even more from all these effects. So as soon as you attack targets with these debuffs, those debuffs are just going to disappear. That's what I'm trying to say. That is one way that you can balance out the DPS that he's just throwing every single turn that you take, as long as you deal damage to one of these targets with a marked effect. Because in my opinion, right, him pursuing with all of his attacks is also pretty good, because he has Seer on his first skill. So he's always going to land Seer debuffs whenever he pursues. And of course, I'm just talking about R6 here, which is not a very main topic in my opinion, because not a lot of players have him at R6. Now, another point of comparison that I want to make is between him and Jin Yuyao. So take note that he dispels all buffs on one enemy, and then you absorb all of their AP. Let's take a look at what Jin Yuyao can do. And Jin Yuyao is, well, I mean, they're not really a really good comparison as compared to Tevor and Lewis. But Jin Yuyao is still one of the most meta experts, and if you take a look at her third skill here, you dispel all buffs from the enemy, and then you reduce the enemy's AP by 75%. I'm not trying to say that Tevor is more broken than Jin Yuyao in this case, because Jin Yuyao covers a lot of other grounds as well. But the thing is, Jin Yuyao only reduces the enemy's AP, Jin Yuyao does not actually absorb it for herself. So Tevor in this case will actually fully absorb that AP, and if that target has like 90 plus AP, he's gonna almost get a new turn again. So that is extremely broken, considering the fact that he can reset his skills as long as he kills the enemy as well. And of course, aside from all of that, he is also incredibly strong at R2 because, no, not this, at R2 because Tevor's attacks always land a critical hit. This is insane, dude. This is his passive and he has a perpetual full crit rate. This is actually so strong that even against Tevor's with the Neko-Sense that reduces the crit he receives by 100%, he's still able to crit against Tevor's with the Neko-Sense. Okay, but jokes aside, he is very far pushed into one single niche, which is what's making him extremely overpowered in this regard. Now, does this mean that he is generally extremely OP? Honestly, I feel like he's going to excel in pretty much every single content, like I said. So I'm going to show you a few stuff in my Discord server that is a little bit alarming. As you can see here, there is Lil Will, who completed APAP in 4 turns. 4 freaking turns with a Tevor over here. And the reason why this is the case is because he has an R6 Tevor who performs very similar to a Brewster. So at the start, whenever your allies attack the enemy, both Brewster and Tevor is going to attack. And because Tevor does a tremendous amount of damage and Brewster has a defense break, this is going to be a nightmare. Like in terms of just clearing content, as long as you have an R6 Tevor, you're immediately going to win certain content, right? So in terms of leaderboard, that is like completely out of the window. So this is, in my opinion, even more dangerous than what Champagne is capable of right now. And next, look at this. This is a 3-man offense that would essentially wipe anything. So as long as your Tia is the fastest over here, Tia takes the first turn, swaps AP with some enemy, right? And because Tevor is going to be the slowest as per here, Tevor is going to gain all of that AP. But assuming that your Ethan is still going to go first because your Ethan is slightly faster, Ethan is then going to drop his second skill because he's more than R2, so he's going to start with his second skill, land the AoE defense breaks, and then that's when Tevor takes the next turn and nukes and one-shots everything. So this is how this 3-man team works. So this is like the perfect 3-man setup right now. Now let's take a look at what some of the players have to say regarding the Tevor adjustment changes. So Tevor's overkill damage needs to be fixed. It shouldn't splash harder than the initial damage given. I agree. Reduce the percentage of true damage from maybe 600% to 300% and reduce the overkill damage. I'm not so sure about this part because this is a very major selling point in my opinion. Like his one-shot potential comes from this as well. So if you remove it, that is gonna severely affect his capabilities. But I do feel like based on how at least I perceive what Lilith's intention was, then the overkill damage is probably like the main thing in my opinion. And yes, take a look at his comment over here. He already full strips into AP absorb. his third skill should not be able to zero any tank in the game without any setup. I agree. I mean, there is setup, obviously. But for him to zero any tank in this game is quite unthinkable. But I'm not saying that there are no counters to him right now. There is a lot of counters because of how Tevor is powerful. So Cecilia is a decent, I'll say she's a decent counter, but the major counters is going to be Ollie and Hyde. I think Hyde is probably going to be like the biggest counter because Hyde will have the highest attack. So Tevor is always going to prioritize Hyde in terms of landing the red debuff on Hyde, and therefore when Tevor kills Hyde, even if he does not have any stacks, the Tevor is actually not going to splash AoE damage. But yeah, so Hyde is one of the best counters against Tevor right now. And this is Hattori. I honestly think he's fine. Sure, he's a bit strong, but that's the point of a Shimmer, to have a kit that makes them desirable, and it's not like he's unbeatable. I think people are over complaining. Okay, I have to agree that they are currently designing the game in a way where Shimmer legendary Espers have to be very, very powerful, very attractive, right? One way I feel that this can still make sense as a whole is to limit the number of Shimmer Espers that people can use in a team. So yeah, I know, very, very hot take here, okay? So the thing is, if you limit any team to like one Shimmer Legendary, for example, it is going to severely limit your choices, and to really make sure that even though you have certain broken Espers, you don't pair them up with like other broken Espers. So like Feng Nusi, Unas, Tevor, you instantly win, right? That kind of stuff. This is just a suggestion. Okay, and then there is this comment. Reduce the overkill damage to 50% to match like Lewis, right? And he's replying to it saying that then that would just be a Shimmer Lewis, not a true legendary Shimmer unit. Now, the thing is, even with a 50% overkill damage, that makes him so much better than Lewis because Lewis is an Inferno type. He's not going to overkill stuff that is flow. He's not even going to kill stuff that is flow. So Tevor being a Shimmer Esper is actually insanely strong as a DPS Esper because he's never going to miss unless he has the miss rate up. So this is still going to make him really, really strong in my opinion. If you think about Biondina and you convert her into a Shimmer type Esper, whoever she buff strips and then she attacks and she one-shot anything because she's a Shimmer type, that is actually really, really strong, and that is actually kind of what Tevor is right now. Well, then make overkill to 100%, 150% is too excessive. This man just changed his mind instantly. 100% will still destroy most tanky comps, yes. R6 Tevor needs to be adjusted in PvE, 100 million scores in Desert Lands are ridiculous. Yeah, so something that I've talked about earlier on. Delete the revive passive. I'm not super sure whether this is the main thing in my opinion, because we have Espers like Taylor who has a lot of one-shot potential as well, who can also perma-death, but he's not really that meta. I'm gonna get attacked by some butthurt individuals about this. Okay, so it seems like people are just like fighting over here right now, so we're actually not going to be too bothered about the thread right now. Now, for the rest of you guys, I implore you to go to this thread and just leave your comments and your suggestions on how Tevor could be reworked. I've stated a few ways that he can be reworked according to how I feel that Lilith game has initially intended him to work. But yeah, anyway, I feel that it's very interesting that the moment Tevor gets buffed, he straight up on the chopping board again. Okay, but the thing is, this is not quite the same as Xuanpin. So some people were drawing some parallels to Xuanpin, for example. This is not the same as Xuanpin getting nerfed at the start, because the thing is, when Xuanpin dropped, there was a Shimmer banner for Xuanpin. Right now, there isn't a Shimmer banner for Tevor, so I still don't agree that Espers should be nerfed. But the thing is, there is not a lot of money on the line right now, so I think it's still something that the game development can still consider with minimal damage to the player base. And I know a lot of people are going to be butthurt that, oh my god, Tevor is now good, but I'm not going to be able to enjoy how good he is. The thing is, if the game released him still buffed, but half as buffed, like all his multipliers are cut in two, he's still going to be insane and you're not even going to complain. It's just that right now people are saying that he's way overtuned, and therefore pushing him back a little bit might make the game more fair, and in my opinion, like 1 month or 2 months down the road, you're going to forget about this. So I don't know, I'm super curious about how he's going to be fixed in the future, and of course I will cover that. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Rest in peace, Tevor.